All right, welcome into the Keep Prowling podcast. I'm your host, DJ Beal, and I am with a very special guest. I mean, a legend in the making, I might say.
All right,
but
there you go.
I'm very excited to have Lawrence Gilligan from WCCB Rising.
Mm-hmm.
I think you're a big sports fan. We've talked from time to time,
yeah,
but and we talked before we got started.
Mm-hmm.
But first off, just introduce yourself to everybody so they know exactly who they are in case they haven't met you before. But they may have seen your face from time to time.
Yeah, man. My name's Lawrence Gilligan, just like Gilligan's Island. I am the morning anchor on Rising, yeah, man. I'm from California, from Oakland, but I've been in Charlotte probably off and on since 2015 or so. So I've had my fair share of Panthers games.
So how many times have you seen the Panthers live? Have you seen the good and the bad, or?
Yeah, I've seen the good, the bad, and the ugly. Honestly,
Yeah.
I think the ugly part was this past year and the year before that a little bit. But the good part obviously was the Super Bowl run. Those years leading into the Super Bowl run because they were so close, and then the Super Bowl year happened. Yep. And it just kind of like they caught lightning in a bottle. Cam Newton was healthy for once because a lot of that is predicated on he had the bum ankle. He had a lot of issues that, the seasons prior to that, right?
Yep.
But yeah, last season was tough because it was a quarterback carousel.
Mm-hmm.
Darnold getting hurt and just Baker coming in and trying to fill in and trying to do a job. And it's tough. There's a lot of question marks, a head coach, you name it, man, the front office, all that stuff going on. But I think they hired a great guy in Frank Reich, and the guys that he hired for his offense and defensive coordinating positions, and bringing in the talent that they're bringing in is exciting.
Well, and speaking of, I mean, that started an exciting offseason, I would say.
Yeah.
Because hiring Frank Reich, there was some controversy behind it because I think a lot of people wanted to keep Steve Wilkes. They wanted to keep the ship going, and Steve Wilkes is a great coach. And, of course, we know he's going to get jobs elsewhere as he continues through his career, and a head coaching job is in his future.
Yeah.
But I think one of the most important things to me that I have seen is the Panthers were probably looking for an offensive coach because they knew for a fact they were taking their quarterback at number one, especially when they made the move, maybe gave up too much. I'll probably say it till I'm blue in the face, but maybe gave up too much to get the number one overall pick. They really, it just seems like for whatever reason, they wanted to go in the offensive direction like the entire league.
Yeah, and going into the draft, I think they had like the fourth pick or something like that. So they had to move up in case they wanted one of those three guys, which was Stroud, Young, or the kid
Anthony Richardson
out of Florida. Yeah. So
and then Will Levis was in there, but then it's crazy that he slipped. He slipped out so far.
I liked him playing, man. And I have a friend here in Charlotte actually that is from Kentucky, and he's like, "Oh, this Levis kid's great." Doesn't see him being an overall number one type pick, or a first round at least. But he even slid to the second round, right? Yeah. But you kind of have to move up, and you kind of have to give away. You have to put your chips in a little bit more in terms of trying to get that that jackpot, and hopefully it's going to pay off.
Yeah, and the thing about it is, it's one of those situations where, like I said, I feel like they gave up too much to give up DJ Moore, to give up picks and stuff like that. I was like, they're going to take 5 steps back, but then you look at the offseason they had. You look at picking up Adam Thielen. You look at picking DJ Chark.
Yeah.
You look picking up Miles Sanders. Not a Super Bowl champion, but close to it. All right. So he's got that playoff experience on top of that too. So, to have these veteran presences in there with a rookie, a guy who, and a discussion for this show right here is, Bryce Young starting day one, possibly. Who knows? I mean, what do you think?
I think they did a great job in bringing in the quarterback as well as kind of a backup, Andy Dalton.
Yep.
Because, the Red Rocket, man, he may not win a Super Bowl. He may not get you there, but he's a good enough bridge for what they're looking to get out of him. And I think he probably realizes that. Yeah. Everyone in that building, everyone here in Charlotte, everyone that's a Panther fan realizes that you have to get a veteran guy in. It's Bryce Young's job, right? Who knows what week that's going to be? It might be week 1. It might be week 5. Who knows? But the fact that you do have Andy Dalton, who is a bit of a name, definitely well known for throwing the ball, airing it out a little bit. Yeah. I don't mind that pickup at all because you do need to mold a quarterback in terms of that quarterback room where you got a guy like Andy Dalton who's been around for a really long time in the league, helping a younger guy out. Like, hey, let's get you up to speed. Put up the numbers.
He's been in the playoffs.
He's a
had
winner.
success.
Yeah, he's had success, exactly. And that's also in part with Frank Reich doing the right thing in terms of, hey, we need to get this guy, another veteran guy that has had success in the league, right? Because you need that around a guy that you're trying to mold.
Exactly. And I think, too, on top of that, it seems like Andy Dalton, you said it exactly right. He could be that perfect bridge. But I think we're also in a league in terms of not only what the fans think, but also sometimes I think what coaches think, too. There's this league of instant gratification, right?
Sure.
We've seen the success of Patrick Mahomes, I mean, which is, Hall of Fame worthy already, right? We've seen the success of Lamar Jackson. We've seen the success of these Josh Allen and these guys and how quickly they develop.
Yep.
So I think we're kind of in a league of instant gratification where people want what they want and they want it now.
Yeah.
They want playoff success, they want it now. They want Super Bowls, they want it in year 2.
And that's life right now, man. You want instant results right away, right?
Yep.
You want them yesterday. I mean, I can tell you that, right? But I know, so it's hard because I'm kind of old-fashioned in terms of, you're thinking of guys that have kind of sat behind a guy for a few weeks or a year or something like that, and then all of a sudden it's their time, right? The next year is their time.
Yeah.
But I also am an advocate of, hey, throw him out there. He's got to get that gameplay experience, that speed down that you're not going to see in practice.
Yep.
You're not going to see that in practice at all. They don't go full speed.
Yeah, and you're exactly right. I wanted my beach body last summer.
Right.
So I mean that's just how it is. That's just how it is.
Yeah.
Like there's a standard, and I think sometimes it's unfair.
Yeah, I agree.
Speaking of kind of the unfairness of these criticisms that people get, a lot of people say Bryce Young is too short to be in this league. He's too short to be successful in this league. What do you think?
It's funny, man, because I'm only 5'11", right? And I played, and I say only 5'11" because if you talk professional sports, that's not the tallest, right? Especially in football, unless you're a cornerback. A running back, or a corner, or maybe even a safety, and usually, generally, safeties are at least 6 foot and up, right?
Yeah,
6'1",
especially
maybe.
Now they're trying to get bigger safeties, rangier safeties.
Right, exactly, right. So, a guy that did play high school football and at quarterback, being my size, I mean, I couldn't see over anybody, and that's at the high school level, right? I had trouble finding guys. I had trouble, and that's another thing where I think the playbook comes into mind, where you have to know where guys are even more, because sometimes your vision might be not as clear as a guy who's 6'5", or Josh Allen who's 6'3", 6'4", back there in shotgun. That's almost unfair. So it'll be interesting. The good thing from being an old-fashioned mindset of that, it's like if you're 5'11" and you're going into college as a quarterback, like, you have zero chance unless you're running like an option or something like that. And granted, I graduated in 2002, so I'm not that old, but in the grand scheme of what they're going to try to do on the field, it's like, is it going to be what kind of a stylistic playbook is it going to be? Is he going to be in spread like Kyler Murray does with the Cardinals? Reason why Kyler Murray's in spread all the time, because he's probably shorter than that, So I am kind of wary on that, but I also have read a ton that this guy is just super intelligent, knows the game of football. I mean, heck, he played for Alabama. If you're telling me a kid that's 5'11", 5'10", is playing for Nick Saban and winning national championships, like,
you got success and you was well coached. I mean, that's a win-win situation for a guy who I think the odds are kind of stacked against him. But I think, I know a lot of people, they still want, we talked about this before we went on. I'm a big Ravens fan, so I've seen the not so prototypical quarterback, not so prototypical guys,
right?
And for me, I think Bryce Young will be completely fine because of the way he plays, right? Like, it's not. I think it was harder for a guy like Drew Brees, who was a stand-in-the-pocket, statue-type quarterback.
Right.
You got to find those windows. Guys like Kyler Murray, guys like Bryce Young, they can move around. They can create their own windows. And when you have talented receivers, you got Jonathan Mingo, who you hope has plenty of potential.
Terrence Marshall, even, man. Hopefully he steps up. I think he will. I think he has a lot of potential.
Yeah. I mean, Adam Thielen. He's going to get open. DJ Chark is going to get open.
Yeah, for sure.
Hayden Hurst, I think, is sometimes forgotten about too. A former first-round pick.
Man. They got a lot of guys. I think they fulfilled the spots that even last year. I'm like the past 2 years. Granted, DJ Moore did a good job with what they had going on there in that situation, but they needed playmakers, man. They needed speed. They need deep threats. They need guys in the middle of the field that can handle it. Be in the slot. And you have the good tight end now. You have a tight end that should be reliable. I think I was reading something earlier this morning or even yesterday that he played, starting from week 1 or 2, he played with like a strain growing, but like it was like a super, super severe strain. So you're going throughout the entire year not even being 100%, right? Yep. So, and he comes from a very well-touted franchise too, you know, in the Bengals. And I think he has the pieces. I'm just excited to see what the playbook's going to look like, what the offensive line is going to look like too. Because it's one thing to run the football that they did really well last year. I mean, towards the end of those last few games, they were running 40, 50. Yeah, no one could stop them.
Yep.
You know, so as long as he gets time to throw the football, some pass protection, I don't feel like Young is necessarily the scrambling type. Like you're a Ravens guy, like Lamar Jackson.
Yeah.
I feel like he's like a 1-read type guy, maybe a 2-read type guy, but if it's not there, he goes immediately, you know? And that's just me. I don't really know the Ravens that well. But I've seen that Young is super intelligent. He knows his playbook in and out, which is good because that'll give him time for 2 or 3 reads, right? So he doesn't have to rely on his feet so much. But you do have a guy back there that can.
That's true. Yeah, and I think, too, you know, piggybacking on the Ravens comment, you know, Lamar Jackson has kind of been forced to do more with less. So, you know, he's probably forced to be 1-read, 2-read, you know, type of guy. The good part about
you don't have the time.
Bryce Young, and that's true. You know, the offensive line is kind of shaky since Marshall Yonder retired. But the good part about what the Panthers have done this offseason is you have talent around him. You know, you have veteran talent. They know how to, you know, find the little nuances within the offense. But it's going to be interesting to see, too, Frank Reich, he's never had a guy like Bryce Young, a guy who can maneuver like that, a guy who can,
he's find the traditional
he's had the
quarterback,
you know, big stance, you know, strong, tall guy who stands in the pocket.
That's why Will Levis wasn't a guy. I'm surprised they didn't take Levis, man, just based on the past of the guys he's had. You know, it's going to be fun. It'll be interesting, man. I just hope. You know, I don't think the Panthers fan base is the type to where if he has one bad game out of the gate, they're going to just, what did we do? I don't think it's going to be like that at all. You know, you kind of have to give him a chance to develop a little bit, show you what he's made of, hopefully not get hurt in the process of it, you know. And you also have to give the coaching staff a little time, too, which is a scary thing because it's almost like, you know, when a head coach leaves a college program or it's always like, man, we got to wait like 3 or 4 years because they have to get those guys in. They got to all of a sudden 3 or 4 years pass, and like we said, we want success.
Something else. Yeah, it wasn't like it wasn't what we thought it was going to be. Right. So now, you know, the coach gets fired.
Right.
Did the coach get the chance to?
Yeah, and then you're like, oh, now it's back to square one. And you got players that don't want to, you know, because of the coaching carousel. So hopefully, I think it's going to create a culture of stability, which is what is really needed.
I think so too, and I think another thing that goes into that is when the thing about coaching is so important, right? There's been plenty of games lost via, you know, by coaching, not necessarily the personnel on the field. Yeah. So, you know, going back to that kind of that feel that kind of want for instant gratification, I think a lot of people are going to want Bryce Young to start day one. And my thing is, should Bryce Young start day one for those tuning in? You know, what do you think? Like, what do you all think? But also, it kind of comes back full circle. Should he? You know, because when you're the number 1 overall pick, there's pressure that comes with that. Yeah. And there is a pressure to be good right away. There
is. There really is. You want to be successful right away because, I mean, we went to Bama. You know, imagine putting someone in, plug it and plan like Saban does, and all of a sudden they're still successful and they still win and they still end up in the national championship or the Final Four every time, right?
Yep, exactly.
So the expectation's already there, which is great. I don't know what you do because, look, the NFC South is wide open, right? Everyone's talking about the NFC South just being kind of maybe like a dumpster fire, but people are saying that it's not going to be the best, obviously, out of the entire NFL.
But somebody's got to come out of it.
But there's opportunity.
Yep.
There's opportunities. So they have a lot of guys that, and look at the defense. They didn't really touch the defense. They only made it a little bit better, some improvements. They're going to a 3-4 scheme. It's going to be fun to watch. We'll see. You know, I think their defense will keep them in a lot of games. It's just a matter of the quarterback play and a matter of putting up points.
Yep, and you know, the other thing is, too, like, can you build on the defense that you had last year?
Right.
But kind of put that missing piece together, which was the offense.
That's what you need to do, because, I mean, the defense kept them in I don't know how many games, you know, and they were always on the field. You know, always, and it's like, how good of a unit is that to be on the field that amount of time, and you're still in the game to the very end.
Yeah.
That's incredible.
Yeah.
And
I think too, like, this it's going to take time, right? This
It
offense is going to take time to mature, take time to build the chemistry together. You got a brand new quarterback with brand new receivers with a brand new coach, right? Like that's, to make that something overnight is, almost impossible. But you put up a good point. You said the NFC South is wide open, and that's true because I think sometimes we forget because the Panthers did have the number 1 overall pick, and they were originally sitting at the number 9 pick. I think it's almost forgotten about sometimes that the Panthers were, 1 or 2 games away from hosting a playoff game?
Man, it's wild how the end of the season was last year. I was just like, okay, why are they winning? Because I'm like, keep tanking. You're right there. I don't understand what you're doing. The quarterback situations, it's a mess because Baker got hurt. You're playing PJ. No offense to him, but what are you gonna do? You know, so you keep they kept winning, and you're like, what are you guys doing? At this point of the game, that late, it was like week 12, somewhere later in the year. You gotta rack up some L's so you can make sure you get the 1 or 2 pick. And guess what? Maybe we still have DJ Moore. Yeah, or maybe we don't.
That's true. I do. Speaking, it's funny because I just thought about this. You said, you used to be an athlete, and you were a competitor.
Yeah.
So, if your coach came to you and said, "We're tanking," we got to lose. What do you think? As a competitor, because as a fan, I think,
for sure,
or as
a
spectator, you want to see, you want to win, or I think there's 2 sides of the spectrum. You either want your team to win regardless of how bad they are, or you want to see your team tank to get the first overall pick. Right. But as a competitor, how is that different?
Yeah, well, I think they do it subtly in terms of let's put this guy out there, that needs to get experience. Yeah. But you're like, we're gonna get this guy experience. Well, why are they doing that? It's almost like in the NBA, they do the same thing. They have rotational players all of a sudden getting more minutes than starters, and you're like, okay, someone's looking at the standings, so they're obviously not going to tell them to tank right off the bat. You want to fight tooth and nail because, hey, it is a living. You still need to earn a paycheck, and guess what? Every snap, your job's on the line, right? Yep. Every game.
Every snap could be your last.
Every game is like, I can only imagine the stress of that, the stress of that for sure, especially being on a team that isn't being successful. Man, because the spotlight's always on you because you're always watching film of you guys losing and the mistakes being made, right? So yeah, I agree with you, man. Obviously, if my coach were tanking, I'd be like, well, what's the benefit? Am I around next year? Because let's do it. Okay, I'm still playing though, right? But no, that's funny. And it is funny because, I think there is this fever pitch around Carolina right now. The fever pitch around Charlotte because the Panthers fans, they want to see this team get back to that mountaintop that they were at. You're literally, considering how the game went, because I know a lot of people are like, the game went so bad that it shouldn't even been there. But I'd rather be there with a chance than to not be there at all. Yeah. I'm sure, I know losing that game is tough. Yeah. It lives with you. But, there's so much potential. Right. I think it starts this season with a division that is up in the air. It's up in the air, man. I can't even, you got Derek Carr for the Saints.
And that might be the Saints might be the only team that's
pretty good,
right? That might be ready. Yeah. They might be. Yeah. You don't really know because on top of that, you got a rookie quarterback. What am I thinking? So you don't know what the Buccaneers are going to do, right? Yeah. That's the other thing too. You don't know what the Buccaneers.
Yeah, Baker Mayfield out there with Kyle Trask.
Yeah,
who's been there.
There we go.
For a couple of years.
Yeah,
I know. It's Tampa. It's just. Hands down, it's wide open. Atlanta is going to be Atlanta. I feel like they're going to be
not a rookie quarterback, a young quarterback, a young unproven one in Desmond Ridder,
right? For sure. So I think they're also on a trajectory of being exciting again. So it'll be interesting. The Saints, I think, is the team that's win now mentality. Yep. And obviously the Panthers want to win now, but it's going to take a little bit you're going to have some growing pains. I'm not saying they can't make the playoffs. I'm not saying that at all. You never know, but. It's going to be a weaker division, so they do have a shot.
Yeah, and I think the NFC becomes even more wide open because you have. Everybody. It feels like every top quarterback that is at least established is in the AFC.
Yeah.
You get rid of Aaron Rodgers, and now it's, the NFC is wide open.
Yeah, no, it really is.
Except, of course, you got the Eagles. Right?
Yeah.
The Cowboys will probably be there. They'll probably fail before they get there, but they'll be there.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, their NFC definitely is a lot more open than you would think. Even the last year's playoffs, I'm like, man, if Cowboys make the Super Bowl. I'm just not a Cowboys fan, but I'm just like, the Cowboys.
You're either with them or you're against them. There's
like,
two sides of the coin.
Maybe like the mid '90s, growing up. Of course, Troy Aikman, Emmitt Smith, Michael Irvin, Dion. Of course, that was a great team. But yeah, I'm just like, please not Dallas. But yeah. So it's wide open. It's going to be fun. I think it's going to be a lot of fun, and I think they did end on some success. It's a bummer that Wilkes is gone. I think he's with San Francisco now as a coordinator, so it's good to see him land on his feet. But,
yeah, it is.
But it's definitely exciting. It's definitely going to take a little time.
Yeah, and I think that's kind of bringing it back full circle once again. Like, kind of gotta be patient with it.
Yeah.
I think this entire city, like, I mean, you might want to just stay away from, Main Street out there.
Yeah.
You want to stay away from Bank of America Stadium and the surrounding areas on week 2 when they have their home opener, because people are going to be excited just to see what, number one, if Bryce is going to play.
Yeah.
Number 2, what they're going to do with these new additions, these new pieces.
It'll be interesting. We'll see what happens. It's always fun, the first week 1, week 2. Obviously, I think they open on the road this year.
Yeah, they do.
But the home opener is against New Orleans, I think.
Yeah.
So it's like so that's kind of a bummer, because I've been to the last 2 openings the past couple of years. I usually go to 3 or 4 games a year if I'm lucky. Now with a 6-month-old, we'll see. I'll have to pamper my wife Erin for a little bit to try to get there. But it'll be interesting, and it's funny too, because it's like you look at the Panthers Super Bowl team, right? The 2 years before, they lost in the divisional rounds, right, at the playoffs. So it's like. That team, you want to talk about stress and success, that Super Bowl team had to be good.
Yeah.
Had to be really good.
Yep.
And, man, they caught lightning in a bottle that year. I remember covering them that year and being on the sidelines and stuff. And so you just have this feel of a team, how good they are. And you're like, this team, I don't think they're going to lose. Like, I think I thought that like week 3 or 4 when they were playing Houston. And I'm like, these guys are pretty good. And then it just kept going, and they kept
one they
racking
did
up the
lose,
wins.
The one they did lose just didn't even make sense that they lost it. Like,
last game of the season, I remember that too. Specifically, I was in the corner of the end zone. Panthers already scored. I think they're up 7-0, right? And they get the ball back after a pretty weak punt by Atlanta. The defense goes 3 and out, get the ball back. Or no, so it's 7-0. They go right down the field and score. And I'm like, this is going to be a bloodbath. They're going to finish the season perfect. I'm like, oh, my gosh, this is going to be incredible. It's 3rd down and probably maybe 3rd or 6 or 8 or something like that. Not really manageable for Atlanta. Yeah. Okay. Matt Ryan, and they're probably on the 20, maybe inside the 20. So all they're trying to do is just try to get more room for the punter to kick it, to flip the field. He throws, I think, out to the flat, and I believe it was Charles Tillman who had like pass interference or something like that on 3rd and long. And I'm like, you got to be kidding me.
Yeah.
That series, they drove all the way down and scored. So it just goes to show you the complexion of the game where, I mean, Cam just had his first baby, or I don't know which baby it was, but that was a whole deal that week because, man, they got to go perfect. Yeah. They go right down, Cam's from Atlanta. Like, it was just crazy, right? They go right down the field. You're like, these guys are going to win by 50 the way this is going. And that one play changed the entire thing because Atlanta just kind of it was a low-scoring game. Atlanta just kind of ran the clock a little bit. We're getting successful at first downs, and it was an ugly game. And that totally just changed it because it could have been 14-0 like that, and then it's like, it's a wrap.
Yep. And I mean, remember it was that one punt return in the Super Bowl that changed the complexion of that game, or the fumble, or the
the fumble. Honestly, I was there too for that Super Bowl, and going into it, I'm like, we'll see what happens. I'm not, and personally, I'm not one to be too like, because I don't want to jinx it. Let's put it that way. Yeah. So I'm like, all right, we'll see what happens. I'm excited, but I'm like, I don't know. And the fumble by Tolbert, and Graham Gano missing a field goal. I think in the first quarter, I'm like, because that guy would not miss the entire year, and then he misses that one, and I'm like, this is like a 30. It's nothing for him. He doesn't even sleep. I'm sure he can do it in the backyard if you ask him to. And when that happened, I'm like, this is just not going to go their way,
Yep.
you know. And he missed that one, and I think he missed one in the third quarter too to open the quarter, just to get on the board.
Yep.
And he missed that. I'm like, yeah, it's not going to happen.
Yeah, it's it'll be, because I think we all want to see the Panthers kind of get back to that level again.
Yeah.
And, it does start with this year just making some progress.
Yeah,
I
think so too.
I don't think they have to take a large step, but
No.
I think people want to see. We saw steps with the front office when it comes to making moves.
Mm-hmm. So
So now it's like they had a plan with what they wanted to do and they did it, and now it's like can they execute it on the field?
The one key I can say that I've seen in my years as a journalist and covering sports for my many years, especially in the NFL or any team for that, if you start looking at veterans going to teams in the offseason,
Mm-hmm.
like for instance, Charles Tillman, who's a veteran, right? Coming from the Bears, and I'm not sure if he played somewhere in between before that. They had Roman Harper, Charles Tillman, Jared Allen all of a sudden signs with the Panthers during the season. You're like, well, what they realize is that the Panthers is good enough to make it all the way and possibly win it.
Yep.
So that's the kind of culture that needs to be built starting now, which I think should be with Frank Reich. Once you start seeing those type of veterans sign a couple of year deals, or maybe it's a year deal or 2 years, they're betting that this team is going to go all the way.
Yep.
So that's just my little 2 cents on that. That's one thing to keep on track. You're like, why would that guy sign? Oh, he's on. He just wants a shot at the ring.
Yeah.
You know, J.J. Watt comes out of retirement, signs with the Panthers. We got a shot.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely excited. I think the entire city is excited.
It's fun, man. Yeah. I mean, I want week one to be like this week coming up. You know, and you're like, oh, we got OTAs, preseason.
We got to overreact about OTAs, right?
Yeah.
We got to overreact about some of the players that may not even make the team during preseason.
I know.
And then we finally get to the season. That's how it works.
Overreacting over Sanders, having a toenail fall off or something. It's like, just relax. It's going to be okay. Yeah. When we're in August, then we can start to kind of really get a feel for it. But I'm just excited for the season to be here. It's a bummer that it's only June.
Yeah, it's funny because as long as it is away, it'll be here before you know it.
It really will.
Because that's the thing. It's going to be here before you know it. But I appreciate you for coming by.
Yeah.
I appreciate you for joining me.
Absolutely.
Like I said before, anytime.
Yeah, man, let me know. I'm always willing to talk Panthers for sure, and whatever else you got going on. Thank you for having me.
Of course. I'm once again, I definitely just appreciate it. I just appreciate it because it's all the banter back and forth, the discussion. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, it was a good time, man.
Yeah.
Whenever you want.
Hopefully
that was good enough.
Yeah, it was. Definitely appreciate it. We'll see you guys on the next episode of the Keep Prowling podcast. I appreciate my guest today, Lawrence Gilligan. I got it right this time.
Hey, you're right,
as always, definitely hope you guys enjoyed it. See you guys on the next episode of the Keep Prowling podcast.